I'm Virginia, and this is the Living on the Verge podcast. Welcome. Today we're going to be covering The Valley episode 7 and the Aftershow as well. We'll also be covering some Bravo news and some pop culture. So let's jump in. Episode 7 begins with Jasmine and Melissa driving to LAX to pick up Zach. They say that it's true friendship. Not just anybody would pick up a friend at the airport, much less LAX. Anyone who has ever had to travel in or out of LAX knows that it's kind of a nightmare, even if you're just there to pick someone up or drop them off. It's true. It's hard to get someone to take you to the airport. I have personal experience with this very recently, whereby it was going to cost a small fortune to take a shuttle to and from LAX. My other option was to pay for parking the entire time we were gone. So I started asking around, and I can't tell you how hard it is to find someone to take you to and from the airport. But I found an angel. My daughter-in-law volunteered. I was literally just telling her the story, and she volunteered to take the day off to get us to the airport. Now, I'm not sure I'm going to take her up on it, but tying back into the Valley, that means she really loves me. Thank you, Sarah. So, how about them talking about how Jasmine felt disrespected more as a friend because of what had happened with Danny? Trigger warning, we're going to hear a lot about this Halloween incident for the entire episode. Hopefully it'll be put to bed by the time the episode is over. Zach jumps in the front seat and he says the same thing. It takes a true friend to pick someone up from the airport. He had been traveling with Benji, and he goes on to tell us they are now official, and also Benji is still married. Zach tells us he was married for 10 years, but he has been estranged and has not had any contact with his husband for the last 2 years. So what's that all about? Anyway, here's what Zach thinks.
I don't think his husband knows about me, but he about to. By the way, I am prettier than his husband and younger.
Oh, snap, Zach. Sounds like you're getting kind of shady on us. We then get to see Michelle and Nia take Isabella and little Asher on a play date. Nia asks Michelle what happened at dinner after she left the night before. And you'll remember I mentioned on my last podcast that the girls went right back to talking crap about Nia as soon as she left. Well, Michelle really softened the blow. And instead, all she said is Jasmine got super, super emotional and cried a lot. Nia tells Michelle that she thought it was resolved, but in confessionals, she just states she hopes they're able to talk things out and resolve it, meaning that Danny is able to take care of it. The ladies are having more fun at the sand table than the kids. Didn't you think so? I sure did. And listen, that place seems like somewhere super cool that I could sit and squish some sand around for a while. Look really relaxing. Guys, can we talk about Isabella again? Let's talk about editing, production. I'm sure that the producers fed the question to ask about Jessie, but her exact words, just hear them for yourself.
How are things going with all the, Jessie craziness?
He doesn't, I don't even think comprehends or thinks that what he's doing also affects me and my relationship.
Yeah.
Because Jesse's always like, my mental health. And I'm like, I'm not doing anything to you.
Narcissist, right?
Yeah.
So for me, what I'm about to say next could be blamed on production, because the very next shot is Isabella looking on and listening to the conversation where her mom's friend just called her dad crazy and a narcissist. Now, I know I've been Team Jessie most of the time, and honestly, I can see Michelle's side. I'm starting to see it more and more, but these two just weren't made for each other. And that being said, unless it was editing, which would make this forgivable to the ladies, y'all need to stop having these conversations in front of your kids. They're brighter than you think, especially little Isabella. Then we have the boys, Jason, Danny, and Luke. They go to a place called Heavy Handed Burgers. I'm guessing it's the one in Studio City. They have a couple of other locations. So this place makes smash burgers, and their big thing is they have a heavy-handed sauce. All they serve is burgers, fries, ice creams, and beer. Well, a double burger with fries, that wasn't easy to say, and a drink will set you back about 1850, and the place looks really cool. As an aside, on my way to Arizona, I stopped at McDonald's, and I only have McDonald's once a year or so because I don't like it and it's terrible for you. Sorry, I guess I'm never going to have them as a sponsor. Anyway, um, it was $18, 17 something for a Big Mac meal. I could not believe it. It just blew my socks off. So for me, the lesson was don't go to McDonald's. If you're going to pay that kind of money for a burger, go to another place like maybe Heavy Handed Burger. Back to the guys. Danny's kind of disappointed because they have no salads, but he gets this little mini tiny burger, and then the guys sit down to eat. And then Jason comes at Danny about still and yet again the tequila in the pantry. If this does not end, I don't know where we take this season or this show for that matter. What I have noticed the entire season is they fight, they make up, they fight, they apologize, they forgive one another. But the issue is that they're fighting about the same two damn things: the Halloween incident and the tequila. I can't. Jason told Danny that he was drunk enough that he couldn't make it to the dinner, but Danny said, regardless, I was going to take a nap. Danny points out that just last week in Santa Barbara, Jason had said it wasn't a big deal when they were sitting in the spa, and then they flash back to that. And then Jason brings up the Halloween incident again. Danny tells us in the confessions that he dealt with shame and disappointment for a while.
For a while with shame and disappointment in myself. I don't treat women like that. I don't treat people like that. You know, the way I was raised was if you hurt someone, you apologize.
Well, as the meal goes on, Jason just starts falling all over himself, and his composure starts to unravel, and he starts to, stumble all over his words. And I can't help but wonder myself, is Jason being a friend, a mouthpiece, a good husband, or a lawyer? The next scene is incredibly confusing to me, and I'm going to explain it. But they flash on the screen that it's day 17, and we're about to get another video diary from Jax's rehab. Well, a few episodes back, they mentioned that he had only been in there 3 days. And if you remember last summer, he went into rehab and he left after just a few days. And then he went back a second time after he had hit, I guess, even a further allegedly rock bottom. Well, anyhow, I think that what they did was I think they spliced it all together so that they would be able to cover it as if it were one rehab stay. So I think that that was a little bit of editing trickery, and it threw me because I expected to see them showing him, breaking loose and then bottoming out and then going back. But it looks like they wanted to give Jax a little bit better of an edit than that. And I think what they were trying to do is get across to us that eventually he did, take it seriously. Here's a little snippet of his video diary. I don't know. What do you think?
It's a special day for me today because I get to see my son, and I'm gonna cry. I haven't seen my little boy in, I don't know, a long time. It's just a really, really good day.
You guys, I don't know how I feel about this. This is the same Jax that I met the night of the premiere of season 2 at Jax's Studio City. I told you guys that when I spoke with him, he said that he was basically done, that it had kind of destroyed his life, and that he'd partied enough for several lifetimes. Well, this is the, repentant Jax that I saw. So I don't know if this is some just amazing trickery and this guy is the best of all gaslighters. I mean, we find out a little later that he is a diagnosed narcissist. So there's got to be some of that at play. And, I don't know what to say about that. But I really just want to give him the benefit of the doubt because, he's tugging at my heartstrings. However, he did want to be an actor. So I'm sorry to go so hard on you, Jax, but I think you're going to need to do a little bit more than just profess your love to your son for me to believe that you're doing better. I really hope you are, though. I really do. He tells us that he has a lot of things that he wants to say to Brittany, and he kind of alludes to the fact that he wants a do-over. Then we have Brittany, who is planning her shark party. Brittany, I'm telling you, I don't think I've ever come across anyone in my life whose favorite animal is a shark. But beyond that, she has a party for everything, this girl. I don't even think that there was an occasion. At least if they said one, I missed it. Well, sadly, things did not go well with Jax after his visit with Cruz. Brittany showed up with for a conversation with the therapist, and she tells us that he had uncovered the cameras that he himself had installed in the house so that he could spy on her. And then she tells us that Jax wants to try again, but he doesn't think that they should live together. Brittany says that she had already paid 3 months up front for a lease on the rental that she's in. And then Jax breaks this news to her that he signed a lease on a condo next door to none other than Tom Schwartz. It does seem counterintuitive to someone, wanting to try again and make their life better, and then they go sign a lease for a condo that is right next door to a single friend who, they partied with back in the day, and now you're trying to convince your wife that you want to get back together. It just doesn't track, Jax. So I'm a little confused. I can imagine how confused Brittany must have been in that moment. Then we have this weird, almost produced scene where Danny takes Melissa and Jasmine out for a drink. He orders water. It's just the dumbest. I mean, you could tell that he's like, I've done this already, but I'm going to do it again. And I'm not trying to downplay Jasmine's feelings or her trauma about this. She talks more about how people don't take their relationship seriously. And I told you guys last week that that must really suck. It must be really, really hard. And then Melissa tells Danny that, if Jasmine would have been a man, things probably would have ended completely differently. Well, they both say that they want each other in their lives, and it ends pretty much, hopefully, with this being a done deal. I'm not sure. Anybody's guess. We've been going on this for 7 episodes now. Kristen and Luke are at a brunch situation, and Jesse joins them. And then Luke brings Jesse up to speed on the lunch at the burger place with Danny and Jason. And he says he doesn't understand why Jason was being so hard on Danny. Well, then Kristen chimes in, and here's what she had to say.
Jason sucks. He's on my list now.
Yeah, I couldn't fully grasp why he was so worked up because I don't know how it directly affects him.
What the hell does Jason give a what Danny does?
Exactly.
Jason's in no space to be judging anyone's relationship. Keep your wedding ring on all the time, and then you can start talking.
Yikes. Kristen tells us that she got her information from Zach, but it was confirmed by Jasmine, which is where she gets most of her intel from. Kristen says the only reason she brought it up is because they are being so hard on Danny and Nia. And Luke, he's not happy, you guys, that Kristen brought it up at all. He says it's something that should never have been brought up. And the Kristen I know and love and remember comes out.
With me all you want. You with my friends and family, I'm gonna take you down. Mama Bear's coming out to play.
So we're back at Brittany's shark party, and Zach is having abs painted on. Apparently, this is one of his favorite pastimes because he's done it in a bunch of different ways, in a bunch of different times. And Brittany's party planner is everything. I have never seen a party that that girl has put on that wasn't just top notch. So congratulations to you. However, I can't imagine how much money you are spending on parties. Then Jason tells us he's nervous about seeing Danny. They're headed to the party, and he's afraid because he says, I was pretty hard on him. And we see the people arriving at the party. We have a very pregnant Lala. We have Scheana. We see Brock. We see Jared. And then we see Michelle, and she's telling Lala what Jesse had said in Santa Barbara, you know, the hooker and the whore comment. Well, Lala does not take that lightly. To be continued. Jasmine asks Jesse how he's feeling after Santa Barbara, and he says, not great. But then Jasmine says, are you still into Michelle? And he says, no, not at all. Do you agree with Jasmine that Jesse still has feelings for Michelle? Or is it just pride and ego right now? Lala tells the girls that eventually you get to a point where you just laugh about it, like her and Scheana do, and say what a dumbass about her ex. This is the second time in very recent times that I have heard Lala bash her ex after having said on her podcast that they came to a good place. Now, I recognize that this was filmed before she made that declaration, but I also have heard her say some shady stuff on other podcasts recently. So I don't think she is quite past the anger phase. Let's just say that. So then Jason pulls Danny aside for a chat, and he tells Danny he's not been sleeping or eating much because he's really upset about the way things unfolded between them at the burger place. In the confessionals, Nia tells us her first thought was that Janet had sent Jason in to be her attack dog. Side note, Jason does not give attack dog. Not on the show, not on Instagram, not on their podcast, and not in person. Then Nia says she's starting to question their friendship because she's starting to feel as if they are being targeted. Jason gives what looks like to me a super heartfelt apology. I mean, he's almost in tears. And then Danny says he forgives him. I have a question. How come guys are able to resolve their issues so quickly and so plainly? It's just crazy to me. Women would never, ever be able to resolve it that quickly. I mean, listen, maybe I'm not giving my girls enough credit, but we're filled with drama. We usually have to go around the bend 3 or 4 times and, hear 4 different iterations of I'm sorry before we can get out of our feelings long enough to say, I forgive you. And that's another question. When somebody says I'm sorry, do you say I forgive you? Otherwise, how do they know where they stand after their apology? I've always thought that it's really important to think about that. And I don't always do it, but I do think it's important. And I try to remember. Well, here's where things start to get a little steamy. Jesse approaches Lala, who gives him this chilly little side hug that was kind of a huge moment for Lala. And listen, she was going to take it. Blame it on hormones, blame it on not having a regular paycheck, whatever it is. She tells Jesse to think of what he did from the perspective of someone having done that to his daughter. And then she says he probably would have shown up with the shotgun. Well, she starts to get really condescending and doing the neck thing, and the conversation quickly unravels. And then, coincidentally, Jared and his fabulous little blue gloves and Scheana, who apparently misses the cameras, show up for backup. But neither of them say anything. They just, I guess, want to be on camera. And then after this tongue lashing, they marched away.
I have zero interest in this conversation. You're mean to my friend. I think you're toxic. I think you're a narcissist. And I'm happy I don't have to deal with you.
Fantastic.
There it is.
Perfect. Well, this gave me a good laugh, so thank you for that.
Now, that comeback at the end there from Jesse was pure self-defense. He was feeling embarrassed and humiliated in the moment, and so he thought he would demean what she said. It's not attractive, Jesse, but it's understandable given that she just read your ass. Well, Jesse pulls Jason aside to warn him about this impending conversation that is coming. Jason can't even understand why he's friends with these people. He's asking, what in the hell is wrong with this friend group? So he wants to confront the issue right away. And he walks up to Zach and asks him if there's something going on. And Zach gives him this weird look and then scurries off, supposedly to go get a drink. Well, Jason and Janet are not done with this. So they sit down with Kristen and Luke and confront the issue head on. They then call Jasmine over. Well, Janet calls Jasmine over. And Jason's just flabbergasted. Like when he finds out that the issue was that 2 years ago, someone accused him of not having his ring on in a club. He just thinks it's ridiculous. And of course, he vehemently denies it. But he's pissed. He's pissed. Janet's pissed. And Janet basically demands an apology. I don't think she's going to really get it. There's no real resolution. Then Brittany brings the group together, well, parts of the group together, to tell them about Jax's lease next to Tom Schwartz's house, and everybody's pissed. Brittany says she's seeing a lawyer next week. Speaking of Schwartz, Brittany meets him at Jax's with Jasmine. And this is the setup for that big switch. Remember last summer we saw all over Instagram that Jax had been switched to Britts and they covered the sign and they went the whole 9 yards. And it was supposedly a joke. Well, this is what it was. It was a reaction to what was going on when Jax was in rehab and he decided to move in by Tom. So we're going to see that next week, but this is obviously the setup for it. So Brittany's talking to Tom and she's just pissed. She has been somewhat petty, but she does also have reason to be really furious if you ask me. And then she drops the big bomb. She found out yesterday that Jax had not paid the mortgage since May. And they flashed the date on the screen and it says today is August 15th. Brittany says it's sad because she's losing her dream home, her family, her everything. Jasmine literally shouts, "I can't," and proceeds to make her point by having this little tizzy fit, storming around, wanting to cover the pictures, and grabbing one of the Jax's signs and saying this needs to go in the trash. Did you notice Schwartz? He felt super uncomfortable and he said something. He mumbled under his breath, "I'm going to go get another drink."
Flabbergasted.
We're done.
Yeah.
There's no Jax and Brittany anymore.
It's really quite sad, you guys. They ended it with a montage showing their whole kind of, relationship from when they met to when they got engaged to the wedding, to it turning toxic to where we are today. That was it. The episode ended. We did get a supersized mid-season trailer and we see drama all over the place. We have drama between Nia and Janet, between Zach and Brittany, between Kristen and Janet, and even between Danny and Jasmine. I guess the Halloween thing gets kind of old. But I heard a rumor that the reason they're focusing so much on this Danny thing is because something else happens later on in the season that kind of illuminates the issue all over again. So I guess we're just going to have to stay tuned and see. I'm going to give you a little synopsis of the after show, and then we'll talk a little bit of Bravo news. Some of the highlights and some of the notable things that I agreed with is Brittany in the after show says she can't believe that they allowed Jax to sign a lease while in rehab. Well, I totally agree with that. She said that when she met with them in the park, when they saw Cruz and the rehab counselor was there, she said it felt really one-sided. And then Jax thought leaving them home would be the best for Cruz and everybody. But it was a little bit too late, Jax. You'd already gotten her into debt. You hadn't paid the mortgage, so on and so forth. Well, Jax tries to spin it as if Brittany would be happy because they no longer had to go to Airbnbs. And it just shows me that as recently as the Aftershow filming, he was still gaslighting. I mean, we're going to find out in a little bit here that he admits to being a narcissist. So it's no surprise, but it is kind of disappointing because, we had the super dramatic, tear-filled video diary. Well, Brittany's 3-month lease, someone's lying. Somebody's lying, guys. Brittany claims that she told Jax he should stay in the Airbnbs so they could save money and then she would move back. And that was before he signed the lease. But then Jax maintains that he was just doing what was right for Cruz. And that's why he signed the lease, because he wanted Brittany and Cruz to be in their home. Then we start talking about the unpaid mortgage. Brittany explains to us that she moved out on January 24th of 2024, and he stopped paying the mortgage in February, which actually contradicts the May date that she just gave us on the episode. But I do agree that it was an asshole move on Jax's part, especially because, as Brittany points out, Cruz has autism and routine and comfort is very important to him. So Jax was trying to punish, and the only person who he really punished was his child. Jason and Brock think that Jax's depression may have caused him to drop the ball on some things. Why are they making excuses for his poor behavior? Like, we all know he was spinning out at that point, and he was probably, allegedly, using the mortgage money to go up his nose. Even he said if he hadn't gone to rehab, he'd be dead by now. Jax further admitted that he went on a 6-month rampage of not giving a damn. Then he tells us that he wrote a $200,000 check to catch up on the mortgage, including interest and penalties. I don't believe that, because Brittany tells us that her mortgage used to be $8,000 and now it's $18,000 because of taxes. And then Jax explains that they owed the IRS. I mean, it's a nightmare. It really is just a nightmare, the way this guy just blew their whole life up. And besides, Brittany tells us that she paid for everything besides the mortgage. Like everything. Cruz's clothes, groceries, utilities, all the things. And yet, he even stopped paying the mortgage. So she says Jax gave her $3,000 in all of 2024 for Cruz, and cumulatively between 24 and 25 to date, she has received $8,000 altogether. Jax is about to admit responsibility, but then he quickly pivots and tells us that it was because he was so hurt that Brittany hooked up with his friend. Jax, just when I want to believe in you, you say something stupid all over again. Jason and Danny talk about the burger joint again, and Jason maintains that Danny thinking he was a puppet sent by Janet says more about Danny's relationship with Nia, because Janet never tells him what to do, and then he listens. Jason came across a little bit righteous in this moment, because Danny did remind us again about what Jason had said in the hot tub, but Jason has a sly little way of throwing a dig, and I'm starting to understand more and more what he finds attractive and charming in Janet. Then Kristen tells us if you mess with her friends, she will F you up. But Luke tells us that he was really upset, and Tom Schwartz labels Kristen's behavior Vintage Kristen. I love it. I'm using it. Thanks, Schwartzy. Kristen, then Jax, super matter-of-factly, tells us that he scored 29 on the narcissist test. I think he's referring to a test called the NPI. It's the Narcissist Personality Inventory, and it's commonly used to self-report. It's a questionnaire, and once it's filled out, you're supposed to be able to judge how much of a narcissist this person is. So Low is considered 3 to 9, middle is 11 to 17, and high is anything greater than 21. Jax just told us he's a 29. There you have it. But as he's telling us that his score is a 29, he also goes on to say, because, he's a professional now and he can diagnose people, that he thinks Kristen is a covert narcissist because there are two types, covert and overt. And he knows he's an overt type of narcissist, but he thinks that Kristen is a covert narcissist and that that's almost worse. Scheana, Michelle, and Janet say Kristen will say anything when she's upset. I agree. Almost everybody, including Lala, thinks Jason's a good guy. And Schwartz says that the whole ring thing is an old rumor, like 3+ years old, that had never been substantiated. Jasmine tells us that she heard the Jason ring rumor 3 years ago at a party and that there was much more said. So see, she's still stirring shit. She also says that Melissa heard it too. Janet says they contacted the friends that Melissa and Jasmine were referring to and that they had no idea what was going on. Well, Lala vouches for Janet's story, but this whole thing's a mess because Janet's friends, supposedly one of them even called and asked Kristen where this was all coming from and that they had never said anything. So they basically confronted her. Janet and Jason further tell us that Luke requested to follow a bunch of Jason's friends last summer and that his purpose was to dig up information and take Jason down. I don't know, but that's what she says. Apparently, this was premeditated. And then when asked, Jesse says he's not still into Michelle, not even a little bit. Jesse says they had a secret separation before anybody else knew for 4 months. They were living together, but they were already secretly separated. And Lala and Brittany say both Jax and Jesse have the same trait. They care more about themselves than anybody else. Michelle tells us that Jesse controlled every single aspect of her life. And Jesse tells us that that's a narrative that Michelle would love to spin. But in fact, Jesse explains to us that after the separation, Michelle went out every night. And he thought it was important that he know where she was going and what time she was going to be home. I don't know that that was not controlling and manipulative. Once you're separated, he used Isabella and the fact that there was a child sleeping in their house. I don't know. Do you agree? Well, that's it. That's how it ended. I don't know what is going to happen for the rest of the season, but I've had it about up to here with the talk about Danny's drinking, and I've had it about up to here with the same nonsense between Michelle and Jesse. So hopefully Brittany on her podcast said that there's a lot more to come still, and we'll see. Hopefully it'll be a little bit lighter. I'm still missing the light, fun, vibe that season 1 gave us. But I am enjoying this. I mean, listen, it's better than a lot of the other things that we've been given. So I'm not going to complain too much. But I am going to tell you what else I've been watching because I kind of went off on a tangent. I watched Selling Sunset. I had never really watched it like enough to know who the cast was or any of those things. I had watched one episode here and there, mainly because I love the houses and I just love to see the properties that they were listing. But I went back to season 1, episode 1, and I followed it all the way through to season 8, and I'm hooked, you guys. I also started watching Selling the OC, and what about Top Chef? I really liked that show. I didn't think I would, and in fact, I remember when I went to BravoCon, the Top Chef corner was completely deserted, and this year when I go, I'll definitely be paying them a visit because I'm a fan now. I also watched that other cooking show called 24 Did you guys follow that? That is a nutty concept. It's basically 24 chefs that will be cooking for 24 straight hours, and they will have 24 different challenges. And it was nutty. By the end, they were making some really, really silly decisions and mistakes. But it was pretty entertaining. Michael Simon was the host. It was pretty cool. I would watch it again. Real quick, let's cover some Bravo news. Bella, the event decorator for Britts Golf Club event from Real Housewives of Atlanta, she speaks out. She is from Infinity Events of Atlanta, and she tells us that she was not hired to do anything other than the decor, and that she found it very distasteful that Britt was trying to blame all of this on her. She was not responsible for the food, and in fact, Britt decided that she was only going to have appetizers because there were budget constraints. So, Britt continues to be ratchet, you guys. Todd and Julie Chrisley were pardoned by President Trump. That day, pop culture and reality TV clashed. President Trump pardoned Todd and Julie Chrisley just earlier this week. They were convicted of bank fraud, tax evasion, giving banks fake documents, and they were pardoned. Season 3 of The Traitors has been announced, and some of my notable favorites are Kate Chastain, Tom Sandoval, and Christine Quinn. She's from Selling Sunset, which I was just talking about. And then Tiffany New York, who was on before, she'll be back again next year. So I'm excited about that. It's not going to start until next year, but I am excited to watch it. And the word on the street is that Andy Cohen allegedly paid Housewives to unleash a coordinated attack on Leah McSweeney. You know, because of the trial, she's the one who's suing him. Well, I don't know how much of that is true, but they're using the following 3 cases as proof that he basically set the girls out on a witch hunt to, you know, slam Leah and I guess devaluate her case. So we have Lisa Vanderpump was on the talk, and she just said that she thought the whole thing was nonsense. And then we have Heather Dubrow from Orange County saying that Leah should be thanking Andy. And then we had Margaret Josephs saying that she's from New Jersey, saying that her claims are intended to do nothing but assassinate Andy's character, and that is disgusting. So I don't know if Andy is behind all of this or if the girls just decided that they're going to stan Andy because this whole lawsuit is a bunch of nonsense. We don't know. Allegedly, she has other people that are going to come forward. That has never happened. Bethany Frankel has been threatening this for like a year and a half now. And we're still waiting to see some other person come forward with any sort of credible evidence. So I think this is another one that we're just going to have to see play itself out. And LVP is seeking parties of 6 to 8 to apply for Vanderpump Villa. Must be for the next season. If you are interested, they are looking to enhance a special occasion like an anniversary or a bachelor or bachelorette party or a special graduation or even a wedding. If you think that you can qualify and you would make an interesting story, if you win, you will be on the show and you will have a luxury vacation at one of their gorgeous villas. So if you're interested, you could go to bmpcasting.com/guest to apply. Next Gen NYC starts next Tuesday. And of course, Ariana Bierman, who is Kim Zolciak's daughter and one of the cast members on the new show, just pleaded guilty to reckless driving and using drug-related objects in reference to the DUI case that she was facing from 2022. Well, the DUI got dropped and she got 24 months of probation, and she needs to subject herself to blood, breath, urine, or saliva tests from time to time. Not a bad deal for a DUI, I guess. Maybe it's because she was Ariana Bierman. Teresa Giudice of New Jersey fame is going to Australia on her bring back the Wives Tour in July. Kind of embarrassing. I think I mentioned that she was getting thirsty and doing all kinds of things, and she keeps finding people to join her. In this case, Whitney Rose of Salt Lake City, and then several other folks from RuPaul's Drag Race and Drag Race Down Under are going to be on the billing. I looked into it. Tickets are $120 for general admission, all the way up to $350 for something they're calling the Ultimate Housewives Experience. I didn't look into it much more because hell would have to freeze over before I would fly to Australia to see Teresa Giudice. And last Tuesday, right after I released my last episode, Page 6 broke the news that Brittany Cartwright is dating Will Gittins. He is an R&B musician, and apparently the news came after Brittany was spotted attending one of Will's shows in Los Angeles last month, along with Zach. Well, he's 32 and she's 36, and this must be who she was referring to as her crush on Lala's podcast. So let's see if this becomes anything more. For now, looks like she's moved on. Good riddance, Jax Taylor. And finally, this Saturday, 5/31, May 31st, is the Pride Pool Party at SUR from 2 to 6 p.m. because it's Pride weekend. Will you be out there? I'm going to be out there. I hope to see you. Let me know if you're coming. Send me a DM or send me an email. And I really hope that you enjoyed this episode. We'll be back really soon. Bye.